Welcome to Armchair Buffaloes, where we discuss all things Colorado football. We've got an exciting show today with Coach Gary Barnett. He was named College Football Coach of the Year in 1995 when he turned around a Northwestern program that hadn't won a Big Ten championship since 1936. In 1999, Coach returned to the Buffs, where he had been an assistant under Coach Bill McCartney on Colorado's only national championship team. I was a redshirt freshman on the 99 team, and in 2001, Coach led us to a Big 12 championship over the number 3 ranked Texas Longhorns. Our quarterback on that team was my co-host, Bobby Pesavento. Coach, as one of your former tight ends, I remember how hard you worked to mold us into one of the top rushing attacks in college football. In 2001 and 2002, we ran for 6,662 yards. By comparison, in the last 2 seasons, the Buffs have managed roughly 1,600 rushing yards. That's not good enough, and I think the biggest place it hurts us is in short yardage and goal line situations. The kind of production you were looking for in the run game didn't come until your 3rd year, Coach. From what you've seen this camp, can we turn the running game around this year?
Well, it wouldn't take much to turn it around, Beau. I mean, the numbers that we put up were so abysmal. They were embarrassing, especially last year. So I don't know, you'd have to define turnaround is more than 65 yards a game a turnaround. If so, yeah, I think we got a good chance to do that. Part of it comes in the attitude of and the philosophy of the head coach. And if he or she feels like that is really what creates an attitude in your football team, then I think you find a way to make that a big part of it and make it a very, huge part of it and affect the mentality of the football team. And I think every coach has his own philosophy about that sort of thing. And Coach Sanders, I think while he would enjoy that and like to have more rushing yards, I think his mentality goes more towards quick strikes, having to defend the ball all over the field. I mean, when you're brought up as a corner, you worry about the things and you want to do the things that bothered you as a corner. And so we're in 4 and 5 wideouts a lot. And I think that put more stress on Coach Sanders as a player than 2 tight ends, a fullback, and a tailback. He didn't worry about that too much. So I think, I know Coach McCartney was that way when he was such a great defensive mind that we had to deploy offenses that would have given him trouble if he was a defensive coordinator. And so, and we had to try to be in the perfect play versus every defense because he knew the weakness of every defense and he wanted us to have a play for it. So it really comes back to whatever the philosophy of the head coach is. And in Coach Sanders' situation, I think he realizes how important it is to have a running game because it would have made it a lot easier for his son had he had a running game. And so the running game is one, you got to have great running backs, good running backs, but really it's a mentality up front of 5 or 6 guys. In my opinion, 6 guys, which means a tight end. I think it's very difficult to run the football without a tight end these days.
Did add one tight end in the transfer portal, and you've got Savell Smalls, who's coming back. Was on the defensive side of the ball 2 years ago, so he should be a little bit better. But really, like you gotta develop that in practice. Our 9-on-7 and group run periods were no joke, and I've seen Coach Prime talking about practicing smart. Obviously, you want to keep guys healthy, but how fine is that? How fine is that line between simulating live action in the run game and keeping kids off the injury report?
Well, the game's changed since you played and I coached in 2001 and those years. We did have we had 2 live periods every day, 10 minutes, 15 plays, and it was an all-out as you know, war in those 20 minutes that we had each week. And you think, well, what's 20 minutes? But as you know, 15 plays, 20 minutes, 30 plays over 2 days of just getting after it. That's half of a game. So we were prepared at the end of the week to play a game just like we practiced and to play the kind of game that we practice. And so if you remember before we played Nebraska, I recall Coach Solich making a statement that week saying that they had to change the way they practiced because we were so physical. And I think at that point in time, I knew we had a big advantage in that game because when you get somebody to start changing their practices because of the way you play, then you're in their head. And it's sure enough, as you know, it came to work that way. But yeah, we had the offensive line to do it. Think about the tight ends we had in our scheme and think about the running backs we had. I mean, we were made either through our recruiting or what I had inherited, the kind of players that we had. And we certainly weren't going to run the option with Pesavento. So we, we were just sort of made for it, Beau, and we took advantage of what we were. And as a result, we had a juggernaut kind of offense.
Talk a little bit about what a solid run game does for you at quarterback.
It makes your job so incredibly easy, right? I mean, when you can line up and run the ball successfully over and over and over again, and the defense loads the box and they're putting 8 guys in there, and you have one-on-one coverage, or you just have guys outnumbered to a certain side of the field. It makes everything. It makes a decision process easier. It allows you to stay upright. You're not getting hit a bunch, right? Because the guys up front are so good. But when you got a defense on their heels because they're just getting beat up snap after snap by the 6 guys, like Coach mentioned up front, right? They got to toughen that box up, and then it just makes it so much easier to throw the football. But not only in the drop back game. I mean, look how much we use nakeds and getting outside of the pocket as well by play action off of that run game. Kind of moving the launch point of where the quarterback got to throw the football, put a defense in such a tough position. They don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's the other big question mark we got on that team, Coach, is it's tough to replace a guy like Shedeur, and right now there seems to be an active QB competition in Boulder. What can you tell us about that from what you've seen at camp?
Well, Caden Salter is a real athlete. He's also played a lot of football. He's got a lot of experience. He's not Shedeur Sanders. This offense is going to be a lot different than last year's offense. Now, mostly because of the quarterback and the way he plays. The plays will be the same. But a year ago, 2 years ago, for those 2 years, Shedeur Sanders would keep himself alive and get the ball thrown down the field. Receivers had to work as hard before he broke contain. And when he started running, as they did initially to get open or try to get open on the design of the play. And so the receivers always knew that Shedeur was going to throw that football somewhere, and they needed to find a spot to be in order to be the guy that catches the ball. And, you think back at all the plays that he made. Think of the Baylor game and that touchdown pass he threw to Wester. I mean, he got killed on that play, but he scrambled around, stayed alive, and found Wester in the end zone, and Wester made really a great catch. But, Bobby, I was thinking, if you got hit 96 times, you'd be on crutches, dude. So Shedeur got hit 96 times throughout the year.
Yeah.
But Caden Salter now is a guy that he's got a live arm. He's not a classic thrower like Shedeur would be. When he decides it's not open, he's gone. He's north and south. And he's going to be hard to defend. It's going to be a little frustrating for receivers because once he pulls and tucks the ball, he's not thinking about throwing it down the field. So receivers then are going to have to become blockers rather than continuing to try to keep themselves as targets for the quarterback. So they're going to run the ball with the quarterback a lot more, some of it by design, some of it not by design. I think the design runs that they're going to have with him will make them more effective in third down and shorts and short situation. And I think it's going to make them more effective in the red zone, although they were an effective team in the red zone, just throwing it. But I think just the fact that when you run the quarterback, you have an extra blocker with your offense, and it's really hard to stop in the red zone. So I think they're going to be a different kind of team in those two situations, but maybe a more effective team.
Are we going to see Juju at all, or you think it's just going to be a one quarterback show?
I don't think you're going to see him Friday night, but Juju is, he's just 17 years old, and he's getting better every single day. And he's a very talented guy. He's got high football IQ. He really gets rid of the ball. I think the very best thing for him is to have sat there at the second spot and watched everything Caden Salter does and get coached and not have the pressure of playing and get comfortable with an offensive scheme and play calling and having a helmet on that where a coordinator talks to you. All that is so new, and for a 17-year-old to start experiencing that, I think ideally it's a great situation for him to be in a learning experience. He's going to grow real fast. He's going to mature fast. I'm sure of that. I think by the end of the year that you're going to see him playing a lot, and maybe sooner than that. But to start this game, I can't see him playing anybody but Salter to start this game.
Have any thoughts on these two?
Yeah, I mean, let's start by I'm just getting beat up over here. Can't run the option. Can't take hits. Let's see
Not
what
96
else.
of them.
No, I think Salter brings a very interesting wrinkle, right? I mean, I don't as good as Shedeur was making plays and throwing the ball down the field, right? He didn't make that many plays with his feet down the field. Sure, he eluded pressure and stayed in the pocket, but I think Salter's going to bring just another wrinkle to the offense, right? Like Coach said, they're going to have designed run plays for him, but he's going to try to make plays with his feet as well, which is going to make things difficult on the defense. And I mean, I can't help but think that like a guy like Coach Shermer, now that we don't have a Heisman winner, and we don't have Shedeur making sure we got throws and numbers, it's probably going to be a little bit of a different approach, in my opinion, of how he calls the game. But like Coach said, right, Juju's young, but I think we'll see him at some point in time. But I agree, right? He needs to learn, right? He's a great high school player, but you don't know what you got until the lights come on and they step across those white lines. So I think it's smart to let him watch Salter play for a while before you just throw him in the mix.
Yeah, 17 is young. He's not even a legal adult yet. Coach, any other guys who stood out to you in camp that you think could have a breakout season or might be a surprise this year?
Well, I think they've just sort of restocked their receiver core. A lot of these guys, you look at the numbers on this team, there were 111 players on that team in 2024. Only 33 of those 111 are out there playing today.
Wow.
Uh, and so it's amazing to think about putting together a team with virtually, I'm not sure there's more than one senior out there on this team that was on the team last year. There's some seniors, but they're grad transfer guys. And so it's really hard when you have a situation like that. You end up being a coaches led team rather than a player led team. Ideally you want a player led team, because that way players will take you where they can take themselves, and then a coach can take you where you can't take yourself. And so if you've got a coaches led team, that means coaches have to take you where you should have been able to take yourself. And that makes you maybe getting off to a slower start, maybe not becoming the kind of team you could have become had you had a player led team. So to me, that's the biggest challenge, is having so many new players that haven't been there. And I think that the receiver core is extremely talented. I think there's probably more depth in the secondary and in the defensive line than they've had. But are they Colorado Buffaloes? Are they a team? Are they just guys who made a move and trying to get to the next level? And you realize, as you guys know, when you're on a team for 3 and 4 years, man, that's family. Those are brothers. These are just cousins. When you just come in for the weekend, man, or for 3 months, you ain't dealing with family. You're talking about, guys, cousins. So, um, it's a big deal. It's a hard thing, and so it's a really hard job for these coaches, I think, to try to mold this team into something that is rock solid and family and care about each other, because when you talk about that on the outside, people don't quite get it. But when you talk about it on the inside, and the sacrifices that everybody makes for each other over a period of time, and I'm not talking about over a camp, but over a period of time, that's how you grow a team. So it's a lot harder to grow one. And I understand the challenge that Coach Sanders and the rest of these guys have trying to put together a team that's going to die for each other. And so we'll see, but it's a hard job. But that's what they've chosen to do, and as have a lot of other teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was he was forced into that decision with what he inherited in his first season. It's like you get into a repetitive pattern in your recruiting process of just going to the portal rather than going after the high school guys and building. Although we've got some with the big offensive lineman that we got last year and then Juju this year. So maybe in 2-3 years he can get to more of that chemistry. But the pressure to win is just it's so high right now. And if you know exactly what you're talking about, how can Colorado take 33 guys off last year's team? And as a result of it, we're 4 days away from kickoff and we're at home and we're underdogs against Georgia Tech, a team that's led by 6th-year senior quarterback Haynes King. Yellow Jackets are coming off a 7-6 season and return roughly 65% of their production. So they probably have a little bit more chemistry going than we do. I thought Haynes King looked really good in their final game of the season against Georgia last year. What do you think we got to do to win this game, Bob?
Well, I think you mentioned, Haynes King's an experienced guy. He's been in a lot of football games, so there's no question about what he brings to the table. For me, and I also think, Coach and I probably talk about this every week, right? Because of the pub that CU gets and Prime gets, we're everybody's best shot, right? I think everybody's tired of hearing about it. So Georgia Tech's going to come here ready to play this football game. For us to win, you mentioned the big lineman, Jordan Seaton. I would love to see, obviously he's a great player and he's going to be a leader now, thrusted into that role, but get those guys that are lining up next to him to be as big and as mean and as nasty as he is, and try to get a group together, because I think they have a chance to be a good football team. But good football teams need breaks to go their way. They need things to happen that normally wouldn't happen. But that starts by being smart and disciplined. So I think we go back on the offensive side of the ball, right? You got to make plays in the running game. You got to make a defense make decisions. You just can't think we're going to just stand back there and throw it like we have the last couple of years. So I'm looking for a little bit of a shift in the mindset offensively to help us be successful, and I think we're going to need that to win.
Coach?
Well, I'll tell you, you're playing an SEC type team here. This team took Georgia to 7 overtimes. Should have won the game. This is an SEC kind of athlete team as well. And I just recently, I watched the whole Georgia game and a couple others, and this team is really fast. They are big. They know what they're doing. You understand, this head coach is an offensive lineman. And so where his head is and where his heart is and where his emphasis is going to be. And that's what they do. Their offense, that quarterback will run the ball 25 times in this game. And they misdirect on so many different plays. It's there's a lot of eye candy in this game. This is really a hard game for linebackers, and we've got linebackers who are experienced at other places, but not experienced at our level. And we're going to have to be really disciplined, and especially at the linebacker spot and the safety spot, because this team causes you a lot of problems with their offense. They've got some big play guys. Bobby, they're a lot like what you talked about, that there's so much emphasis on the run and so many different ways they can run the football with misdirection that somebody's going to get open. Somebody's going to get lost. Tight ends, you talked about, we have a tight end, maybe two. They have 4 listed starters at tight end. 4. All of them are listed as starters. And so between the misdirections and the motions by these tight ends and the play actions that get them wide open, this is a heck of a challenge for Robert Livingston, I can tell you. And they can't duplicate that in practice. We don't have 4 tight ends in practice. So this is a really hard team to duplicate and try to match up in practice, much less in the game. So it's a challenge, and we're going to have to put points on the board. I don't see this as a low-scoring game.
Yeah, this is a tough opener for us, team that has this much experience and how we've chosen to go about this thing, which, I'd love to sit here and say we're going to click and the chemistry is going to be there week 1, but this is a tough team to go out and try and get that done against. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for you today. We're all excited for the new era in Boulder. If you enjoyed today's show, please give this video a like and hit that YouTube subscribe button to stay up to date with future episodes. Thanks for joining us today, Coach. Go Buffs.
Go Buffs.
Thanks, Coach. Go Buffs.